One second, you feel safe. And then,
The police are on their way.
well, you still do.
I want an open marriage. Do whatever you want. Diana announced it like she was granting me some tremendous favor, standing in our kitchen doorway at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Her designer heels clicked against the hardwood as she set down her purse and keys with deliberate precision. The overhead light cast harsh shadows across her face, making her look older than her 42 years. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing invoices for my plumbing business. The numbers blurred for a moment as her words sank in. Permission to suffer while she explored freely. That's what this was, wasn't it? Open marriage, I repeated slowly, closing the laptop. Interesting timing, considering you just got back from another late night at the office. Her jaw tightened. This isn't about tonight. This is about us, about what we've become. What we'd become. Right. Two strangers sharing a mortgage and a Netflix password. She climbed the corporate ladder at her advertising agency, while I kept the pipes flowing in suburban homes. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being partners and started being roommates who occasionally shared awkward small talk over morning coffee. So, let me understand this correctly, I said, leaning back in my chair. You want permission to date other people. We both get permission, that's what open means. She expected me home, heartbroken, waiting by the phone, crying into dinner for one while she went out to find herself in other beds. I could see it in her eyes, the assumption that I'd crumble while she flourished. And you've thought this through completely? Diana crossed her arms. I've been thinking about it for months. We're not happy, Tom. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time we laughed together? She had a point. Our conversations had devolved into logistics. Who was picking up groceries? Whose turn it was to call the lawn service? Whether we needed to replace the water heater? The kind of mundane exchanges that fill a marriage when everything else has leaked out. So instead of working on our marriage, you want to open it up to other people. I want us both to remember what it feels like to be desired, to be interesting to someone. The implication hung in the air like smoke. She didn't find me interesting anymore. Hadn't for a long time. Tom Mitchell, the plumber who fixed other people's problems while his own relationship crumbled. I stood up, walked to the refrigerator, and pulled out a bottle of water. The cool plastic felt real in my hands, grounding me while my world shifted on its axis. You know what, Diana? You're absolutely right. Her eyebrows shot up. She'd been prepared for a fight, for tears, for desperate negotiations and promises to change. Instead, I gave her calm acceptance that seemed to confuse her more than anger would have. I am? Yes. We should both do whatever we want. Starting now. I twisted the cap off the water bottle and took a long drink, watching her face process my response. She wanted resistance. Got none. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. So we're in agreement then, she said finally. Completely. When do you want to start? I suppose whenever we're ready. Great. I'm ready now. Diana blinked twice, fast. Now? Why wait? You've obviously been thinking about this for months. I'm sure you have someone in mind already. Her cheeks flushed pink. Confirmation enough. This isn't about someone specific, Tom. It's about freedom, about possibility. Of course it is. I finished the water and tossed the empty bottle into the recycling bin. Well, I should probably get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. The Hendersons' kitchen sink is backing up into their dishwasher, and Mrs. Chen thinks her water pressure problems are connected to her neighbor's sprinkler system. I walked past her toward the stairs, pausing at the doorway. Thanks for the permission, Diana. I have a feeling this is going to be very educational for both of us. That night I lay in our bed listening to her move around downstairs. Cabinet doors opening and closing, the refrigerator humming, the soft click of her laptop keys as she probably researched the logistics of open marriages or scrolled through whatever dating app she'd already downloaded. She came to bed an hour later, sliding under the covers with careful movements designed not to wake me. But I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling and thinking about possibilities. Diana wanted an open marriage because she thought she held all the cards. Successful career woman with a corner office and expense account lunches, designer clothes and professional networking events. She moved in circles where people talked about wine regions and weekend trips to Chicago. Meanwhile, I crawled under houses and snaked drains and listened to homeowners complain about their utility bills. Blue-collar guy with dirt under his fingernails and a truck full of tools. In her mind, I was the one who'd struggled to find companionship while she effortlessly attracted sophisticated partners. She was about to discover how wrong she could be. The next morning, Diana left for work early without her usual goodbye. I heard her heels on the stairs, the jingle of keys, and the garage door opening. No kiss, no have a good day. The new normal had already begun. I finished my coffee and headed out to my first appointment. The Hendersons lived in a subdivision where every house looked like a slight variation on the same theme. Beige siding, black shutters, two-car garages, and lawns maintained by professional services. Mrs. Henderson met me at the door in yoga pants and a Northwestern University sweatshirt. She was maybe 35, with blonde highlights and the kind of smile that suggested she'd been waiting for someone to solve her problems. "Thank goodness you're here," she said, leading me toward the kitchen. "The smell is getting worse." I followed her through a living room decorated in shades of gray and white. Everything looked like it had been selected from a catalog. Matching throw pillows, coordinated artwork, the kind of sterile perfection that Diana always admired. The kitchen sink was indeed backing up into the dishwasher. Black water pooled in both basins, carrying the unmistakable odor of organic decay. Classic blockage in the main drain line. "How long has this been happening?" I asked, setting down my toolbox. "Started yesterday morning. My husband tried using some drain cleaner, but it just made things worse." I nodded, pulling on rubber gloves. Chemical drain cleaners usually don't work on blockages this severe. Sometimes they make the situation more complicated. Mrs. Henderson watched me work, asking questions about the plumbing system and how to prevent future problems. She seemed genuinely interested in the answers, which was more than I could say for Diana, who usually left the room whenever I started talking about work. "You really know your stuff," Mrs. Henderson said as I fed the drain snake down the pipe. 22 years in the business. You learn a few things." 22 years? You must have started when you were 12. I laughed. "Close. Started working with my dad's crew when I was 17. Took over the business when he retired." The snake hit resistance about 15 feet down. I worked it back and forth, feeling the blockage give way gradually. Satisfying work, immediate results. Fix the problem, collect payment, move on to the next challenge. "There we go," I said, as dark water began draining from both sinks. "Should be flowing normally now." Mrs. Henderson clapped her hands together. "You're amazing. How much do I owe you?" I quoted my standard rate for drain cleaning, and she wrote a check without hesitation. As I packed up my tools, she lingered in the doorway. "Do you have a card, in case we have other problems?" I handed her one of my business cards. Mitchell Plumbing Services, 24-hour emergency service. "Thank you so much, Tom. You really saved the day." Driving to my next appointment, I thought about the difference between Mrs. Henderson's genuine appreciation and Diana's dismissive attitude toward my work. When had my wife stopped seeing value in what I did? When had fixing people's problems become something to be embarrassed about rather than proud of? My phone buzzed with a text message. "Diana. Working late tonight. Don't wait up." Working late. Right. More likely she was meeting someone for drinks, testing the waters of her newfound freedom. I texted back a simple, "Okay," and continued driving. The rest of the day passed in a blur of leaky faucets and clogged toilets, honest work that people appreciated and paid for promptly. By 6 o'clock, I was finished and heading home to an empty house. Instead of going straight home, I drove to Murphy's Gym on the east side of town. I'd been a member for 3 years, but rarely used it beyond the occasional weekend workout. Tonight felt like a good time to change that pattern. The gym was busy with the after-work crowd. People in their 20s and 30s working off the stress of office jobs and retail shifts. I changed into shorts and a t-shirt that had seen better days and headed for the weights. "Tom Mitchell, haven't seen you here in forever." I turned to find Jake Morrison, a guy I'd known since high school. He'd put on some muscle since our last conversation, but still had the same easy grin. "Been busy with work," I said. "Thought it was time to get back into it." "Good timing. I was just about to hit the bench press. Want to spot me?" We fell into an easy rhythm, alternating sets and catching up on the last few months. Jake worked in construction, so we had similar stories about difficult customers and weather delays. Normal guy conversation that felt refreshing after months of careful small talk with Diana. "You should come more often," Jake said as we finished up. "There's a good group of regulars here. We grab drinks sometimes after workouts. I might take you up on that. Everything okay at home? You seem a little, I don't know, different." I considered how much to share. Jake and I weren't close friends, but we'd known each other for 25 years. Sometimes you need to talk to someone who remembers who you used to be. "Diana and I are going through some changes, trying new things." "Sorry to hear that. Marriage is tough." "Actually, it might be exactly what we both need." Jake nodded like he understood, even though he probably didn't. How could he? I wasn't sure I understood it myself yet. I drove home feeling better than I had in months. Physical exercise had cleared my head and reminded me that I existed outside of my failing marriage. Diana wasn't the only person in the world, and her opinion of me wasn't the final word on my worth. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Diana's car was gone, confirming what I already knew. She was out exploring her new freedom while expecting me to sit home feeling sorry for myself. Instead, I ordered pizza, opened a bottle of wine that had been gathering dust in our cabinet, and settled in to research something I'd never thought I'd need to know about: online dating. The websites were more sophisticated than I'd expected. Detailed profiles with photos and compatibility questions, filters for age, location, interests, and relationship goals. A marketplace for human connection that felt both exciting and slightly overwhelming. I spent an hour creating a profile, choosing photos that showed me at my best without being dishonest. A picture from last summer when Diana and I had gone hiking. Another from my nephew's wedding, where I cleaned up well in a suit. A casual shot of me working on my truck in the garage. For the description, I kept it simple and honest. 44 years old, business owner, enjoyed outdoor activities, good food, and intelligent conversation. Recently separated and exploring new possibilities. Within minutes of activating the profile, I had 3 messages waiting. Women who found something interesting about a straightforward guy with a real job and no apparent emotional baggage. Diana's assessment of my appeal was proving dramatically incorrect. I was reading the 3rd message when I heard her car in the driveway. Quickly, I closed the laptop and switched to watching the news. Let her think I'd spent the evening feeling sorry for myself. She came in through the garage, her cheeks flushed, and her lipstick gone. Her hair was slightly messed, like she'd been running her fingers through it or someone else had. "How was work?" I asked, without looking away from the television. "Fine. Long day." "I'll bet." She paused in the doorway, studying my face for signs of distress or anger. Finding neither seemed to confuse her more than if I'd been openly hostile. "What did you do tonight?" "Went to the gym, ordered pizza, watched some TV. Pretty exciting stuff." "The gym?" "Yeah. Figured it was time to get back in shape. Jake Morrison was there. Says I should come more often." Diana frowned. She'd never liked Jake, though she'd never been able to articulate exactly why. Probably because he represented the parts of my life that existed before her and outside her influence. "I'm going to take a shower," she said. Good idea. After she went upstairs, I reopened the laptop and responded to the 3 messages. Friendly, but not desperate. Interested, but not overeager. By the time Diana finished her shower, I had 2 more messages waiting and 1 invitation to meet for coffee. This was going to be more interesting than either of us had anticipated. Diana left early again the next morning, this time with a spring in her step that hadn't been there in years. She hummed while getting ready, spent extra time on her makeup, and chose a dress that showed more skin than her usual office attire. The transformation was remarkable and telling. I waited until her car disappeared down the street before opening my laptop to check the dating site. 7 new messages overnight, including one from a woman named Jennifer who'd read my entire profile and asked thoughtful questions about my business and interests. Her photos showed someone around my age with laugh lines around her eyes and a genuine smile. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and had 2 teenage kids who lived with their father most of the time. Divorced for 3 years and, according to her profile, ready to meet someone who knows what he wants. I typed a response suggesting we meet for coffee that weekend. Her reply came within an hour, agreeing to Saturday morning at a cafe downtown. Just like that, I had my first date in over 20 years. The rest of the week passed in a strange rhythm. Diana continued her late nights at work, while I split my time between actual work and preparing for Saturday. I bought new clothes that fit properly, got a haircut that took 10 years off my appearance, and spent an hour at the gym every evening. Jake introduced me to his regular group, and I found myself looking forward to the workouts and casual conversations. These were people who appreciated honest work and didn't care about corner offices or expense accounts. They judged you based on character and reliability, qualities that Diana had stopped valuing somewhere along the way. "You're looking good, man," Jake said Thursday night as we finished a particularly intense session. "Whatever changes you're making, keep it up." "Thanks. Feels good to focus on myself for once." "The wife appreciating the new you?" I laughed. She's been too busy to notice. Friday evening, Diana came home at a reasonable hour for the first time all week. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her phone and glancing at me like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. "Everything all right?" I asked. "Fine. Just thinking about tomorrow." "Big plans?" She hesitated. "I might go out. With some friends from work. You know, just to explore the new arrangement." "Sounds fun. I have plans too, actually." Her head snapped up. "Plans?" "Coffee with someone I met online. Jennifer, she seems nice." The color drained from Diana's face. In her mind, I was supposed to be sitting home alone while she enjoyed her freedom. The possibility that I might actually use the permission she'd granted hadn't occurred to her. "Online? Like a dating site?" "Well, yes. That's generally how open marriages work, isn't it? Both people explore new connections." I didn't expect you to jump into it so quickly." "Why not? You said you'd been thinking about this for months. I figured I should catch up." She stared at me like I'd suddenly started speaking a foreign language. The confident woman who'd announced her desire for an open marriage was nowhere to be seen. In her place stood someone who looked genuinely rattled. "What's she like?" "Jennifer, she's a nurse, has 2 kids, seems down to earth and easy to talk to." A nurse. Diana's voice carried a note I couldn't quite identify. Surprise? Disappointment? "That's nice." I thought so. She actually read my entire profile and asked intelligent questions. Very refreshing. Diana went to bed early that night, claiming she had a headache. I stayed up late reading Jennifer's messages and learning about her life. She'd been married to her high school sweetheart for 15 years before discovering he'd been having an affair with his secretary. The divorce had been messy, but she'd come through it stronger and more independent. Her messages revealed someone who'd learned to value honesty, and direct communication. She asked about my situation without being invasive and shared her own experiences without dwelling on past grievances. By the time I went to sleep, I was genuinely looking forward to meeting her. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical October weather that could go either way. I dressed carefully in new jeans and a button-down shirt that actually fit my shoulders properly. The gym sessions were already showing results. The cafe Jennifer had suggested was in the Arts District, a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture. I arrived 10 minutes early and claimed a table near the windows where I could watch for her arrival. She walked in exactly on time, scanning the room until she spotted me. Her photos hadn't done her justice. She moved with the confident efficiency of someone accustomed to handling emergencies, but her smile was warm and genuine. "Tom? Jennifer, thanks for meeting me." She slid into the chair across from me, unwinding a colorful scarf from around her neck. "This place has the best coffee in the city. I hope you don't mind that it's a little unconventional." "I like unconventional." We ordered drinks and fell into easy conversation. She asked about my business, and I found myself describing the satisfaction of solving problems and helping people in ways that Diana had never seemed to understand. Jennifer nodded along, asking follow-up questions that showed she was genuinely listening. "It must be rewarding," she said, "knowing that you're making people's lives better in such a direct way." "It is, though not everyone sees it that way. Their loss. I deal with the same thing sometimes. People think nursing is just following doctors' orders, but there's so much more to it. Problem solving, crisis management, emotional support." I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in years. Here was someone who understood the value of practical skills and honest work. Someone who appreciated competence over prestige. "Tell me about your kids," I said. Her face lit up. "Sarah's 16 and thinks she knows everything. Michael's 14 and actually might know everything. They're good kids, though. The divorce was hard on them initially, but they've adjusted well." "Do they live with you?" "Week on, week off. It's actually worked out better than I expected. Gives me time to focus on myself and my career, but I still get to be a full-time mom half the time." We talked for 2 hours, covering everything from favorite movies to travel dreams to the challenges of starting over in your 40s. Jennifer was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly direct. When she disagreed with something I said, she explained why without being confrontational. When she laughed, it was genuine and infectious. "I should probably head home," she said eventually. "Sarah has a soccer game this afternoon, and I promised I'd be there." "Of course. This was really nice, Jennifer. I'd like to see you again." "I'd like that too." We exchanged numbers and made tentative plans for the following weekend. As I watched her walk to her car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. The excitement of getting to know someone new and discovering unexpected connections. I drove home in an excellent mood, already composing the message I'd send her later. The house was empty when I arrived, Diana's car nowhere to be seen. She was probably meeting her work friend for lunch or drinks or whatever excuse she'd settled on. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Thanks for a wonderful morning. Looking forward to next time." I was typing a response when Diana's car pulled into the driveway. She came through the front door looking windblown and slightly frazzled, her carefully applied makeup smudged around the edges. "How did it go?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Really well. Jennifer's great. We're going to see each other again next weekend." Diana's smile looked forced. That's good. I'm glad you had fun." "How was your day? Did you meet up with your work friends?" "Yes. We went to lunch and then just talked about life and relationships and things." "Sounds productive." She disappeared upstairs for a long shower while I made myself lunch and responded to Jennifer's text. By the time Diana came back down, I was settled in my chair with a book, looking completely content. "You seem happy," she observed. "I am. This whole open marriage thing might be exactly what I needed." She sat down on the couch across from me, studying my face like she was seeing me for the first time. You're different. More confident. Maybe I'm just remembering who I used to be. Who you used to be. Before I started defining myself through your eyes, before I started believing that my work wasn't important or that my interests weren't sophisticated enough. Diana flinched. I never said your work wasn't important. You didn't have to say it. The silence stretched between us, filled with years of accumulated resentments and unspoken criticisms. Finally, Diana looked away. I'm going to read in the bedroom. Good idea. I might go to the gym later. Jake's group is meeting for drinks afterward. On a Saturday night? Why not? I'm a free man, remember? That evening, I met Jake and 4 other guys at a sports bar near the gym. We talked about work and sports and the general challenges of middle-aged life. Normal conversation with people who appreciated straightforward honesty. You're like a different person, Jake said as we were leaving. Whatever's going on at home, it's working for you. Thanks. It feels good to remember that I'm more than just half of a couple. I got home around 10 to find Diana waiting up, pretending to watch a movie while obviously listening for my car. She looked relieved when I walked in, though she tried to hide it. Good time? Yeah, Jake's friends are good people. We're thinking about starting a regular poker game. Poker? Nothing serious. Just guys hanging out, playing cards, drinking beer, very middle-aged and suburban. Diana nodded like she understood, but I could see the wheels turning. Her husband was developing a social life that didn't include her, making friends she'd never met, becoming someone she didn't recognize. Sunday, I spent the morning working on my truck while Diana cleaned house with unusual intensity. She kept finding excuses to come to the garage, bringing me coffee or asking questions about my plans for the week. Jennifer seems nice, she said finally. She is. Very easy to talk to. What do you talk about? Everything. Work, family, books, travel. She's interesting. More interesting than me? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I looked up from the engine I was working on, meeting her eyes directly. Different. She's interested in different things, values different qualities, such as honesty, reliability, the satisfaction of doing good work, simple things that matter. Diana's face flushed. Are you saying I don't value those things? I'm saying you stopped seeing them in me a long time ago. She turned and walked back into the house without another word. I returned to my work, feeling clearer about the situation than I had in months. Diana had opened a door she couldn't close. The question now was how far I was willing to walk through it. My phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer. Hope you're having a good weekend. Looking forward to our next adventure. I smiled, typing back, Me too. This is just the beginning. The following week established a new pattern. Diana left early and came home late, her explanations becoming increasingly vague. Client dinner. Team building event. Strategy session. I nodded and asked no follow-up questions, which seemed to frustrate her more than interrogation would have. Meanwhile, my own schedule filled with activities that had nothing to do with her. Evening workouts with Jake's group, a weekend hiking trip that Jennifer had suggested, a poker game that materialized faster than expected when Jake's friends embraced the idea enthusiastically. Jennifer and I exchanged messages throughout the week, sharing stories about our days and discovering unexpected compatibility. She sent pictures from her daughter's soccer game. I sent her a photo of a particularly challenging plumbing repair that had required creative problem-solving. She responded with genuine interest and intelligent questions. You really love what you do, she observed during one of our phone conversations. I do. There's something satisfying about fixing things that are broken, making systems work the way they're supposed to. I understand completely. That's exactly how I feel about nursing. Every shift is different, but the core mission stays the same: help people get better. These conversations reminded me what it felt like to be appreciated for who I actually was rather than criticized for who I wasn't. Jennifer valued competence and reliability. She found my work interesting rather than embarrassing. She laughed at my jokes and shared her own stories with equal enthusiasm. Our second date was dinner at a small Italian restaurant that Jennifer knew. The owner greeted her by name and insisted we try his new pasta special. The atmosphere was warm and unpretentious, nothing like the trendy establishments Diana preferred. "This is perfect," I said, looking around at the checkered tablecloths and wine bottles covered in candle wax. "I thought you might like it. Real food, real people, no pretense." "Exactly. Sometimes the best things are the simplest ones." Jennifer raised her wine glass. "To simple pleasures and honest conversation." We talked until the restaurant started closing around us. Jennifer told me about her nursing school days and the challenges of raising kids alone. I shared stories about learning the plumbing trade from my father and the satisfaction of building a business from nothing. "Your ex-wife must be proud of what you've accomplished," Jennifer said. "Actually, she's not my ex-wife yet. We're just exploring other options." Jennifer's expression shifted slightly. "Open marriage?" "Something like that. Her idea, actually." "And how do you feel about it?" I considered the question carefully. "Honestly, it's been eye-opening. I'm discovering things about myself that I'd forgotten." "Such as?" "That I'm actually pretty good company when I'm not constantly being reminded of my shortcomings." Jennifer reached across the table and touched my hand. "Her loss." The simple gesture sent warmth up my arm. When was the last time Diana had touched me voluntarily? When had she last looked at me with genuine affection? "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said. "Anything." "Are you looking for a rebound relationship or something more serious?" The directness of the question caught me off guard, but I appreciated her honesty. "I don't know yet, but I can tell you that I'm not looking for games or drama. I've had enough of both to last a lifetime." "Good, because I'm too old for games and too busy for drama." We kissed goodnight in the restaurant parking lot, a gentle exploration that promised more without demanding anything. I drove home feeling like a teenager with his first crush, grinning at nothing and replaying every moment of the evening. Diana was waiting up when I walked in, pretending to read a magazine while obviously listening for my arrival. She looked up with studied casualness. "How was your evening?" "Great. Jennifer's wonderful company." "Where did you go?" "Antonelli's, that little Italian place on 5th Street. Diana's eyebrows rose. "I've never heard of it." "You'd probably hate it. Very casual, working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where the owner comes out to chat with customers." "Sounds quaint." It was perfect. I headed upstairs to shower, leaving Diana alone with her magazine and her thoughts. In the bathroom mirror, I caught sight of my reflection and barely recognized the man looking back. The regular exercise had trimmed my waistline and straightened my posture. The new clothes fit properly, but more than that, I carried myself differently, more confidently, like someone who knew his own worth. The next morning, Diana made an unusual effort at breakfast conversation. "I was thinking we should talk about boundaries," she said, stirring her coffee with unnecessary intensity. "Boundaries?" "For this arrangement. Guidelines about what's acceptable and what isn't." I buttered my toast slowly, considering her sudden interest in rules. "What kind of guidelines?" "Well, discretion, for one thing. We shouldn't be flaunting our activities around our friends and neighbors." "I haven't been flaunting anything." "You told the Hendersons you were dating." I paused, toast halfway to my mouth. "When did I tell the Hendersons I was dating?" Diana's cheeks flushed. "I ran into Carol at the grocery store. She mentioned that you seemed very happy lately and asked if everything was okay at home." "And you told her about our arrangement?" "Of course not. I just said we were working through some things. But somehow she knew I was dating. She She might have seen you at that restaurant. With Jennifer. The pieces fell into place. Diana had been checking up on me, either directly or through our neighbors. The thought of her spying on my activities was both annoying and amusing. So, you're concerned about discretion, but you're having the neighbors monitor my activities? I'm not having anyone monitor anything. I just think we should be careful about our reputations. My reputation seems to be doing fine. People keep telling me how happy I look. Diana set down her coffee cup harder than necessary. This isn't a game, Tom. No, it's not. It's exactly what you asked for. An open marriage where we both do whatever we want. I didn't expect you to be so successful at it. There it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for weeks. Diana had assumed I'd struggle while she flourished. The reality of my actually connecting with someone had shattered her expectations and forced her to confront some uncomfortable possibilities. Would you prefer that I be miserable? No, of course not. I need some time to adjust to this new version of you. This isn't a new version. This is who I've always been. You just stop paying attention. I finished my breakfast and headed out for the day's appointments, leaving Diana alone with her coffee and her realizations. My first stop was a routine maintenance call at the Hendersons' house, where Mrs. Henderson greeted me with her usual warm smile. Tom, good to see you again. The sink's been working perfectly since your last visit. Glad to hear it. What can I help you with today? The guest bathroom faucet is dripping. Nothing urgent, but it's keeping us awake at night. I followed her upstairs to a bathroom decorated in soft blues and whites. The faucet was indeed dripping, a steady rhythm that would drive anyone crazy after a few hours. Simple fix, I said, examining the hardware. Just needs a new washer. Mrs. Henderson lingered in the doorway while I worked, making conversation about the weather and neighborhood gossip. As I finished tightening the last connection, she cleared her throat. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you seem really happy lately. Whatever changes you've made, they're working for you. Thank you. I appreciate that. My sister went through a divorce last year, and she said the hardest part was remembering who she was before the marriage. But once she figured that out, everything got better. I looked up from my tools. Your sister got divorced? Mrs. Henderson's cheeks pinked. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have assumed. Carol mentioned that you and your wife were going through some changes, and I just thought, it's fine. We are going through changes. But we're not divorced. Of course, I didn't mean to pry. But her comment stuck with me as I drove to my next appointment, remembering who you were before the marriage. That's exactly what was happening to me. I was rediscovering the person I'd been before I started trying to fit into Diana's version of who I should be. That evening, I met Jake and the guys for our inaugural poker game at Mike's house. Mike was a carpenter who'd built his own place from the ground up, and it showed in every detail. Solid construction, thoughtful design, no wasted space or pretentious flourishes. Nice place, I said, looking around the finished basement where we'd be playing. Thanks. Took me 3 years to get it exactly right, but it's worth it when you can point to something and say, I built that. The other guys nodded in understanding. We were all people who worked with our hands and took pride in tangible results. The conversation flowed easily between hands of cards, covering everything from work challenges to family updates to sports predictions. So how's the open marriage thing working out? Jake asked during a break in the action. Better than expected. I'm learning a lot about myself. And the wife? She's learning a lot too, though I don't think she likes what she's discovering. Such as? That I'm more resilient than she thought, and more attractive to other people than she assumed. Mike dealt the next hand. Women always think they're the prize in the relationship. Sometimes they need a reminder that men have value too. It's not about proving anything to her, I said, picking up my cards. It's about remembering my own worth. Fair enough. but I bet she's starting to notice that worth now that someone else appreciates it. He wasn't wrong. Diana's behavior had shifted noticeably since I'd started seeing Jennifer. She paid more attention to my comings and goings, asked more questions about my activities, seemed genuinely surprised when I had plans that didn't include her. I won $37 that night and drove home feeling more relaxed than I had in months. The house was dark, except for a light in Diana's office. Through the window, I could see her at her computer, probably working on a presentation or catching up on emails, or possibly researching her own online dating options. The thought didn't bother me as much as it should have. If anything, it felt like justice. She'd opened this door, and now we were both walking through it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Hope you had fun at poker night. Sweet dreams." I typed back, "Won big and made new friends. Life is good. Glad to hear it. Talk tomorrow? Looking forward to it." Upstairs, I got ready for bed with a lightness in my step that had been missing for years. Tomorrow would bring new possibilities, new conversations, new reasons to appreciate the direction my life was taking. Diana's light was still on when I fell asleep, but for once, her insomnia wasn't my problem to solve. 3 weeks into our open marriage experiment, the dynamic had shifted dramatically. Diana's initial confidence had given way to something that looked suspiciously like panic, while I seemed to discover new opportunities every day. Jennifer had become a regular part of my week. We met for coffee twice, dinner once, and spent a Saturday afternoon walking through the botanical gardens, while she told me about her plans to go back to school for her nurse practitioner degree. She was ambitious, driven, and refreshingly honest about her goals and limitations. "I don't have time for games," she'd said during our garden walk. "Between work, kids, and school applications, my schedule is packed, but I make time for people who matter." The implication was clear, and it felt good to be considered someone who mattered. Diana hadn't made me feel that way in years. Meanwhile, Diana's work events had become increasingly frequent and transparent. She'd come home with restaurant receipts in her purse, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, and sporting the kind of satisfied exhaustion that had nothing to do with quarterly reports. "Thursday night," she announced another late evening. "Client dinner," she said, applying lipstick with more care than usual. "Might be very late." "No problem. I'm meeting Jennifer for drinks after her shift ends." Diana paused, lipstick halfway to her mouth. "Drinks? On a Thursday?" "She gets off work at 11. We thought we'd grab a late dinner and catch up." "That seems intimate." "It is intimate. That's generally the point of dating." She finished applying her lipstick with sharp, precise movements. "I just think we should be careful about getting too involved with other people." Too late for that advice. "What do you mean?" I looked up from my phone where I'd been reading Jennifer's message about which restaurant she preferred. "I mean, I'm already involved. Jennifer's wonderful. I'm not going to limit that relationship to protect your comfort zone." Diana stared at me like I'd slapped her. This was supposed to be about exploration, not replacement. "Maybe you should have been more specific about the rules before you opened this door." She left without another word, her heels clicking angrily against the hardwood. I finished getting ready for my evening, choosing clothes that Jennifer had complimented and cologne that she'd mentioned liking. The restaurant Jennifer had chosen was a quiet bistro near the hospital where she worked. I arrived first and claimed a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. She walked in 10 minutes later, still in her scrubs, but somehow managing to look elegant anyway. "Long shift?" I asked as she slid into the chair across from me. 12 hours, but good cases. We had a car accident victim who's going to make a full recovery, thanks to quick thinking by the emergency team." "You love what you do." "I do. Even on the hard days, I know I'm making a difference." We ordered wine and appetizers, falling into the easy conversation that had become our trademark. Jennifer told me about her daughter's college applications and her son's newfound interest in photography. I shared stories about my most challenging repair jobs and the satisfaction of solving complex problems. "Can I ask you something personal?" Jennifer said as we finished our second glass of wine. "Always." "How long has your marriage been over?" The question caught me off guard with its directness. "What makes you think it's over?" "The way you talk about your wife. Or rather, the way you don't talk about her. In 3 weeks, you've mentioned her maybe 5 times, and never with any affection." I considered her observation. She was right. Diana had become a logistical detail in my life rather than an emotional presence. Honestly, it's been over for a couple of years. We just didn't admit it until recently. And the open marriage was her way of ending it without taking responsibility? Probably, though I don't think she expected me to embrace the idea so enthusiastically. Jennifer smiled. "Her loss is my gain." "Is that what this is? A gain? For me?" "Absolutely. You're the first man I've met since my divorce who seems to know who he is and what he wants." "What do I want?" "Honesty, respect, someone who appreciates your strengths instead of focusing on your weaknesses." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Am I wrong?" "No, you're exactly right." We talked until the restaurant closed around us, then sat in the parking lot for another hour, reluctant to end the evening. When we finally kissed goodnight, it felt like a promise of something deeper and more meaningful than anything I'd experienced in years. I drove home in a state of euphoria that lasted until I pulled into my driveway and saw Diana's car already there. The house was dark, except for a light in our bedroom. She was waiting up, probably rehearsing whatever confrontation she'd planned while sitting alone with her thoughts. I found her in bed with a book, though she clearly hadn't been reading. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she looked up when I entered with an expression I couldn't quite identify. "How was your client dinner?" I asked, beginning to undress. "Fine. How was Jennifer?" "Wonderful. We're getting serious." Diana's book slipped from her fingers. "Serious?" "Yes. We're talking about her meeting my friends, maybe taking a weekend trip together." "Tom, we need to talk." "About what?" "About this situation. It's getting out of hand." I hung up my shirt and turned to face her. "Out of hand how?" "You're falling in love with her." "Maybe I am. Is that a problem?" "Of course it's a problem. We're married. We're in an open marriage. Your idea, remember?" Diana sat up straighter, her voice taking on the authoritative tone she used in business meetings. "I think we should close the marriage. Go back to the way things were." "Why?" "Because this isn't working." "It's working perfectly for me." "Tom, please, we can work on our relationship. Go to counseling, take a vacation together. Remember what we used to have." I sat down on the edge of the bed, studying her face. "What did we used to have, Diana?" We were what? Happy? In love? Connected?" She struggled for words, and I realized she couldn't actually identify what we'd lost, because she couldn't remember what we'd had. "We were comfortable," she said finally. "Comfortable. That's your argument for saving our marriage?" "Comfort matters. Stability matters. History matters. You know what else matters? Feeling appreciated. Being valued for who you are instead of criticized for who you're not. Having someone light up when you walk into a room." "I can do those things." "When? When have you ever done those things?" Diana's face crumpled. "I don't know, but I can learn." "Why now? Why do you suddenly want to learn now?" "Because I'm losing you. You lost me years ago. You just didn't notice until someone else found me." The silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of years of accumulated disappointments and unspoken resentments. Finally, Diana spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "What about our vows? For better or worse?" "This is the worst part, and you decided you didn't want to work through it together. You wanted to explore other options. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. Yes, you, but not the one you think. What do you mean? Your mistake wasn't asking for an open marriage. Your mistake was assuming I'd wait around while you figured out what you wanted. I finished getting ready for bed and slipped under the covers, leaving a careful distance between us. Diana turned off her light but didn't move closer. We lay in the darkness like strangers, which is exactly what we'd become. The next morning, Diana left earlier than usual without saying goodbye. I found a note on the kitchen counter. "We need to talk tonight. Please don't make any plans." I crumpled the note and threw it away. Then I texted Jennifer, "Free for dinner tonight? I have news to share." Her response came quickly. "Good news, I hope?" "The best," I typed back. "I think it's time to make some decisions about the future." For the first time in years, the future felt like something to anticipate rather than endure. Diana came home that evening armed for battle. She'd changed from her work clothes into the dress she'd worn on our first date 23 years ago, styled her hair the way I'd once said I loved, and even put on the perfume she'd worn during our honeymoon. The effort was both touching and pathetic. "I made dinner," she announced, gesturing toward the dining room where she'd set the table with our wedding china and lit candles that hadn't been used in years. "I can't stay for dinner. I'm meeting Jennifer in an hour." Diana's carefully constructed composure cracked slightly. "I asked you not to make plans tonight." "You left me a note asking me not to make plans. I'd already made them." "Can't you cancel? This is important." So is my relationship with Jennifer. The word relationship hit Diana like a physical blow. She gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. "Tom, please, just give me one evening. Let me remind you what we used to have." I looked around the dining room with its forced romance and desperate nostalgia. What we used to have was 23 years ago. We're different people now. We can be those people again. I don't want to be that person again. I like who I am now. Diana's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back with visible effort. "What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this." "Nothing. There's nothing to fix because there's nothing left to save." "That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you were genuinely happy to see me? When's the last time you asked about my day because you actually cared about the answer? When's the last time you touched me without it being an obligation?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. The silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of honest questions she couldn't answer. "I care about you," she said finally. "You care about the idea of me, the version of me that exists in your memory. But you don't know who I actually am anymore, and you don't seem interested in finding out." "That's not fair. Fair would have been working on our marriage before you decided to open it up. Fair would have been honest communication instead of passive-aggressive criticism. Fair would have been treating me like a partner instead of a disappointment." Diana sank into one of the dining room chairs, her elaborate dinner forgotten. "I didn't realize—" "That's the problem. You didn't realize. You stopped paying attention years ago." I headed toward the door, then paused. "The dinner looks lovely, Diana. I'm sure you put a lot of effort into it. But effort without understanding is just performance." I left her sitting alone in the candlelit dining room and drove to meet Jennifer at a wine bar she'd suggested. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Where Diana's evening was staged and desperate, Jennifer's company was natural and comfortable. "You look stressed," Jennifer observed as I sat down across from her. "Difficult conversation at home? Want to talk about it?" "Diana wants to close the marriage. Go back to the way things were." Jennifer sipped her wine thoughtfully. "And how do you feel about that? Like someone asking me to go back to prison after I've tasted freedom." "That's a strong metaphor." "It's an accurate one. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be appreciated for who I am instead of criticized for who I'm not." Jennifer reached across the table and took my hand. "You know I'm falling in love with you, right?" The words hung in the air between us, honest and unadorned. No games, no manipulation, just simple truth. I'm falling in love with you too. So what do we do about it? I think it's time I filed for divorce. Jennifer squeezed my hand. Are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure. This open marriage experiment showed me everything I needed to know about what I want and what I don't want. And what do you want? You. A relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Someone who sees my strengths instead of focusing on my weaknesses. What about the practical considerations? The house, finances, all the complicated stuff? We'll figure it out. Diana's a successful executive. She doesn't need my financial support. And honestly, I'd rather start over with nothing than continue living a lie. We talked until the wine bar closed, making tentative plans for a future that felt both exciting and inevitable. Jennifer was practical about the challenges ahead, but optimistic about our potential together. I should warn you, she said as we walked to our cars. My kids are going to interrogate you mercilessly. I look forward to it. I want to know the people who matter to you. And I want to know your friends. Jake sounds like a good guy. He is. They all are. You'll like them. We kissed goodnight with the passion of people who no longer had to hide their feelings or worry about arbitrary boundaries. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years, already mentally composing the conversation I'd have with a divorce attorney. The house was dark when I arrived. Diana's car was in the garage, but she'd apparently given up waiting for me to return. The dining room had been cleared, the candles blown out, the elaborate dinner reduced to leftovers that would probably sit in the refrigerator until they spoiled. I found a note on my pillow. I love you. I know I haven't shown it well, but I do. Please don't give up on us. I folded the note and put it in my dresser drawer, not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder of how different love and habit could sound when you knew the difference. The next morning, Diana was already gone when I woke up. No coffee made, no note about her schedule, no attempt at the domestic normalcy she'd been trying to recreate. She'd apparently realized that performance couldn't substitute for genuine connection. I spent the morning researching divorce attorneys and found one with excellent reviews and reasonable rates. Her name was Patricia Hoffman, and her website emphasized fair settlements and efficient processes. I called her office and scheduled a consultation for the following week. That afternoon, I was finishing a repair job when my phone rang. Diana's name appeared on the screen. Tom, can you talk? I'm at a job site. What's up? I've been thinking about what you said last night. And? You're right. About all of it. I did stop paying attention. I did take you for granted. I did treat you like a disappointment instead of a partner. I sat down on the customer's front steps, surprised by her honesty. Okay. I want to change. I want to learn how to appreciate you the way Jennifer does. Diana, I know it's probably too late. I know I've damaged things beyond repair. But I had to tell you that I understand now what I lost. What did you lose? The best man I've ever known. Someone who works hard and treats people fairly and fixes things that are broken. Someone who deserves better than I gave him. The admission was more honest than anything she'd said to me in years, but honesty without action was just another form of performance. I appreciate you saying that, but it doesn't change anything. No, it doesn't. Because of Jennifer. Because of me. Because I've remembered who I am when I'm not constantly being reminded of who I'm not. Diana was quiet for a long moment. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Will you be happy? The question surprised me with its genuine concern. I think so, yes. Good. You deserve to be happy. After we hung up, I sat on those front steps for another 10 minutes, processing the conversation. Diana's acknowledgement of her mistakes felt like closure, even if it came too late to save our marriage. Sometimes understanding arrives after the opportunity to apply it has passed. That evening, I told Jennifer about the call. How do you feel? She asked. Sad, relieved, hopeful, all at the same time. That sounds about right for ending a 23-year marriage. No regrets? About the marriage ending? No. About the years it took me to find the courage to end it? Definitely. Jennifer smiled. Well, better late than never. Much better. We spent the evening making plans for the future, talking about everything from where we might live together to how we'd blend our social circles. For the first time in years, the future felt like something to build, rather than something to endure. Diana and I spoke only when necessary over the next few days, coordinating schedules and dividing immediate responsibilities with the polite efficiency of former colleagues. She didn't ask about Jennifer, and I didn't volunteer information about my divorce preparations. We were already practicing the careful distance that would define our post-marriage relationship. Friday evening, as I was getting ready to meet Jake and the guys for poker, Diana knocked on the bedroom door. "Come in." She stood in the doorway wearing jeans and a sweater, looking younger and more relaxed than she had in months. "I wanted to tell you that I'm moving out this weekend." "Where are you going?" "I rented a condo downtown, near the office. It's time for both of us to start fresh." "That's probably a good idea." "Tom?" "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, I'm glad you found Jennifer. You're right that you deserve someone who appreciates you." "Thank you. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to understand what I had." After she left, I finished getting ready for poker night with a sense of completion that felt both sad and liberating. One chapter of my life was ending, but another was just beginning, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely excited to see what came next. The game that night was particularly good, with everyone in high spirits and the conversation flowing easily. When Jake asked about the situation at home, I told them about the impending divorce and my relationship with Jennifer. "Sounds like everything's working out," Mike said, dealing the next hand. "Better than I could have hoped." "When do we get to meet this Jennifer?" "Soon. She's excited to meet you guys." "Good. Anyone who makes you this happy deserves our approval." I won $43 that night and drove home to an empty house that felt more like a beginning than an ending. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the house Jennifer and I had bought together, watching her make coffee while her daughter Sarah complained about her college statistics class. The morning chaos of a blended family felt natural and right in ways my previous domestic life never had. "Tom, can you explain probability distributions?" Sarah asked, looking up from her textbook with desperate eyes. "I'm a plumber, not a mathematician." "But you're good at logical thinking. Mom says you solve problems for a living." I sat down next to her and looked at the textbook. "Okay, think of it like water pressure in a plumbing system." 20 minutes later, Sarah was nodding with understanding, and Jennifer was looking at me with the kind of appreciation that still caught me off guard. "You're amazing with her," she said after Sarah left for class. "She's a good kid. They both are." Michael had taken longer to warm up to me, but we'd bonded over working on his photography and my willingness to let him help with household repairs. He'd discovered he had a talent for mechanical work and was considering a career in engineering. "Any regrets?" Jennifer asked, handing me a cup of coffee. "About what?" "Giving up your old life for this chaos." I looked around the kitchen where Sarah's textbooks competed for space with Michael's camera equipment and Jennifer's nursing journals. It was messy and loud and completely different from the sterile perfection Diana had preferred. Not a single one. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Poker tonight? Mike's bringing his new girlfriend." I showed the message to Jennifer. "Mind if I go?" "Of course not. I'm working late anyway." The easy acceptance still surprised me. No interrogation about who would be there or what time I'd be home. Just trust and understanding that I was capable of managing my own social life. Diana had remarried 3 months ago to someone from her office. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she was happy and had learned to appreciate her new husband's corporate ambitions. We'd run into each other once at the grocery store, exchanged polite pleasantries, and parted with genuine good wishes. Some relationships end in explosions, others in quiet acknowledgement that you're better apart than together. "I love you," Jennifer said, kissing me goodbye before leaving for her shift at the hospital. "I love you too." The words still felt new and exciting, even after 6 months of saying them daily. With Diana, "I love you" had become a ritual phrase, emptied of meaning through repetition and habit. With Jennifer, it remained a daily choice and genuine expression. That evening, I met the guys at Mike's house for our regular game. His new girlfriend, Lisa, turned out to be a teacher who appreciated our blue-collar honesty and joined the game with enthusiasm. "So this is the famous Jennifer's boyfriend," she said when Mike introduced me. "Famous?" "Mike's told me all about your dramatic life transformation, from miserable married guy to happy bachelor to blissfully coupled again, all in less than a year. It's been an interesting year. Any advice for someone just starting to date again after a long relationship?" I considered the question while Jake dealt the cards. Remember who you are outside of a relationship. Don't lose yourself trying to become what you think someone else wants. And if you find someone who appreciates who you actually are, Jake added, hold on to them. "Speaking of which," Mike said, "when are you going to propose to Jennifer?" The question caught me off guard. We haven't talked about marriage. Why not? We're both still recovering from our divorces. We're taking things slowly. Slowly is good, Lisa said. But don't let slowly become never. When you know, you know. Driving home that night, I thought about marriage and commitment and the difference between settling and choosing. Diana and I had drifted into marriage because it seemed like the next logical step. Jennifer and I were building something intentional and conscious, based on mutual respect and genuine affection. The house was quiet when I arrived. Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway yet, so I had time to think about Lisa's advice. When you know, you know. And I did know. I knew that I wanted to wake up next to Jennifer for the rest of my life. I knew that I wanted to help raise her children and build a future together. I knew that what we had was worth protecting and celebrating. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Long night at the hospital. Don't wait up. Love you." I typed back, "Love you too. Sweet dreams when you get them." Then I opened my laptop and started researching engagement rings. Some doors, once opened, lead to exactly where you need to be.